And you're probably like, what the heck did they do to the configuration? And hopefully I'll be able to get it back for him. But we would like for it to be like a discussion generated, so we tried to put it in a circle, and we had a much smaller group last time than what we had this time, so that's why it looks kind of messy in here or whatever. But if you, when we do have the discussion part, if you feel like somebody's talking to the back of your head or whatever, then turn around this way so that we're like able to discuss it and see and look at each other. You had or hopefully picked up the 2 handouts when you came in. If not, then just give an indication and we'll get it to you. But the salmon colored sheet will come later, so you don't even really need to look at the salmon colored sheet right now. But the, or white. That was my original. Okay. But the packet, the white packet, we're going to start with. And we have up here what our goal is by the end of this session. And so what we want you to be able to do is evaluate a current unit in Atlas Rubicon using a framework to check between alignment and your formative and summative assessments. And then also to be able to look at that unit for instructional strategies and learning experiences. So that's our goal by the end of this session. And right now what we want you to be able to do, the white stapled packet is the UBD framework. So you're going to see it has the different stages listed. If there was not enough and somebody feels comfortable with their electronics, it is linked. So if you go to the blue session, all of the documents that we have are linked. So this one is linked on there. There's also one that's called UBD in a nutshell that would kind of break it down even more. But what we want you to do right now individually is just to spend a couple minutes looking through those different stages and maybe figuring out what part you feel most comfortable with currently at your stage, and then maybe what part of the template generates questions or ahas for you. So we are going to just spend a couple minutes looking individually, and then we will have you get with an LO partner and be able to talk through it a little bit before we share it out as the whole group. So you're not just videotaping the back of my head?
No, I'm getting people.
Okay. So
got it.
Who would like to share based upon what you've talked about with your partner?
I guess we just mentioned that this appears to be a newer version of what the template we used like 2 or 3 years ago. And just bringing out the same stuff, really.
Yeah. UBD's been around a long time. They keep cycling down, or they put a new little spin on it or make it look different, but we have been doing UBD for a long time, and hopefully you're going to see that the stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, are reflected in our curriculum map. So when you get into Atlas, you see that it's kind of the same concepts that are in there that the district is asking you to reflect what you're doing within your classroom within that map. Anybody else have any ahas or questions or things they want to surface?
I guess the where to at the bottom.
Yeah.
I've seen that before, and it's really important because I think as a student, you need to be interested and you need to be hooked in, and then you need to also know kind of where is this headed, like what's the unit culminating assessment, what's it going to look like, and I like the acronym.
Yeah, I will say that when we were planning this and when we were looking at the different resources and we saw that, I said too, where to, what's that? I've never seen that in my whole entire life here at College Community, and it can't surely be on our map. And lo and behold, when we looked on the map and we hovered over it, it is there. But for whatever reason, when UBD was first unveiled to me, or when I started working with it, that was something that like it escaped me and makes a lot more sense to me now where I'm at. So I would know if I was going back in and looking at my map, I probably need to do a lot more with that stage 3, those learning experiences, and I'm ready for that now. Where years ago when it was first unveiled to us, I probably wasn't in a state to be able to wrap my head around that. But that would be an area in my map where I would need to go and beef that section up with that. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one where I was like, I've never seen that before in my life on that. But others?
We kind of had a conversation about the fact that our focus has shifted so much to the core that we feel like we're really good at knowing what those goals are. That part of this, like the instructional, like the assessment, having this test per se, as opposed to a performance task. Like, we feel like our shift has really been to the skill drill. And then we look at this and we're like, but we used to do that whole concept-based, you know, hooking them and doing more of that. So I guess it's kind of almost like combining these two things and making sure that we're doing both and not shifting from one to the other. I don't know, it's kind of a moment for us to kind of see.
So the last part of our session that we're going to be doing is we've developed a checklist to where you can go in and look at a unit, kind of with a critical eye. We just ask some questions that you could be referring back to. And Emily is bravely going to model it with a unit of her own. So we'll pass out the
science at point. So this is a unit that we just finished. So if you look at your first check mark, our learning targets clearly align with the Iowa core. We're having a standard kind of shift maybe with the NGSS in science. So we had started a map with NGSS, so I have the standards up here on the top. And then if you look down, the next bullet, our learning targets clearly defined as to what students will do and perform to show their understanding. So we have, learning targets are down here. And we went through, we have the ones highlighted are ones that we expect all students to know. And then, so we have 7 learning targets for this unit, which, oh, they're not in red, but, so there's our learning targets here. And then we have our content. Do learning targets scaffold and aim at a higher level thinking among all students? I would say that's probably something that we could work on if we were looking through and doing this as a PLC. Can students clearly communicate the learning targets to self and others in their own words? We tried to write them in student understandable terms, so those would be on our whiteboard so that students can see those. If we move down to stage 2, can students describe strong examples using criteria for quality? These 3 points under stage 3 I don't have in our map, but they are something that we do try to do with instructional strategies and show strong and weak examples. So that's something that you could put down here in your learning experience area to reflect that on your map if you are using strong and weak examples. And then with stage 3, our lessons developed with formative checks for every learning target. We've put in our formatives and our summatives. So we obviously do more summatives than are on here, but some of the bigger ones we've put on here. So observations in class, or maybe like a formative when we do some questions and answers there. But there's other ones that we do in class, like exit slips and things like that, but that aren't actually on here. So you can kind of look through. Do formative assessment scaffold in rigor leading to the summative, kind of looking through what quadrant your formatives are in, and does that go towards your summative so that your students are ready for the summative.
And you can kind of, I guess the position that I am over at Point, I have the opportunity to be in various different PLCs and see lots of different maps and how people are attacking it. So some departments, if you scroll back up to the learning targets section, will actually put the standard right in that section and then unpack it with the learning targets that would lead to that standard. So it just generates that conversation that are all of those learning targets being tied back to a standard, or do we have learning targets that are not leading anywhere? And so that can become a conversation that you can have within your PLC, or just a conversation that you have with yourself to make sure that everything is aligning back to a standard and that you're scaffolding those. The same with the assessments. I know that how our stage 2 is on that map, it's just allowing you to put that assessment, and depending on how you put it in, sometimes I think it goes alphabetically. It doesn't go based upon if you know that they're scaffolded according to levels of learning. So you might have a section down there either under the resources or under that learning experience where you just kind of map out your assessment plan just to make sure you are assessing students at various levels and eventually get to that level that you are hoping that they're going to be at on that summative. So if we aren't ever formatively assessing them at a higher level, when you get to the summative, then you might become disappointed if students haven't had that opportunity to practice at the level that you're wanting. So that might be something that you could be reflecting in the map too, in order to just plan through it and make sure that it's all cohesive. So you have a checklist right now, and what we would like you to do is get with a partner who has not seen your map and pull up a unit and kind of talk through kind of what the unit is about. And the person who is looking at the map for the first time would give you some glows and grows as far as what are some things that could be done differently or added or questions to consider. And then that bottom part down there is for you to reflect on what would be your plan moving forward. Would you take this back to your PLC, or how are you going to incorporate that success criteria of that checklist into your units to making sure that it becomes clear for everyone with that? Okay. I forget between group to group, just like when I was teaching in a class, if I said it to one class and haven't said it to another class. I think it was in the last group, because I don't think I've said it in this one yet. Under those learning experiences, when you're doing that where to, I'm looking specifically at Kelsey and at Leslie, because I know they're within the same department within our building. But learning experiences in Leslie's room might be different than what's in Kelsey's room, and that's okay. You can still reflect it on the building map. You could put whatever experience that might be and just call it Leslie or call it Kelsey, but it's at least kept there and archived there, so if one of you ever left, it's something that you can remember. It becomes a trigger. It doesn't have to be the full-blown lesson plan, but it's just those little snippets that kind of trigger your memory as to, well, I didn't do that experience this year. I know Leslie did it in her room. Maybe Kelsey would incorporate it next year, and it's at least reflected there for you to be able to look at. So we're going to give you the next probably 20 minutes. You can kind of talk through. There's just one person talk through first, and then share out those glows and grows, and then the next person have an opportunity to pull up their map and be able to look at it with a critical eye, a reflective eye, as to how we can improve it and help that design become better. Are there any questions?